Start again. Good morning. My name is Julie Cohn and I am the chair of Herefordshire Schools Forum. Before we formally start the meeting, I'll ask each person present to confirm that they can hear and be heard. This is a legal requirement for virtual meetings where practical. Please also have your video switched on so that you can be seen by those in attendance and the public watching. So I'll go through the list here, which Sarah's given me. So Kathy Weston.
Yes, I can hear you.
Christine Bryan.
Yes, I can hear you.
Pat Burbidge.
Yes, I can hear you.
Alex Davis, I don't think is here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry, you're here. Sorry, Alex.
I can hear you as well.
Paul Deenan. Paul, you're here, yeah.
You're on mute, Paul.
I know it. Well, I didn't put that on. I was muted. I'm here and I can hear you. Thank you.
Nikki Emmett.
Yes, I'm here and I can hear you.
Stephen Fisher. Stephen Fisher here, is it? No.
No.
Nikki Gilbert. Nikki, you're here.
Yeah, yeah, and I can hear you. Yeah.
Ed Gwillam. No, he's not here. Kimberly Harley. No. Joe Hedges.
Hello. Yeah, and I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Martin Henton.
No.
No. Ali Jackson. Sue Jenkins.
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you.
Paul Jennings. Apologies, I think might be for that one. Stephen Kendrick. Steve's not here.
No.
Tim Knapp. No. Tracy Neal. Tracy's here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you.
Chris Lawrensky. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, I'm here. I can both see and hear you.
Yeah. Sean Lyons.
Yes, I'm here and I can hear you.
Rose Lloyd. I don't think Rose is here, is she? No. Norman Moon. Norman, we know is here. And hopefully you can hear us. And Rachel Rice. We also have the following officers and attendants. We have Chris Baird, who's our Director for Children and Families. Chris is here. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, and hopefully you can hear me as well.
Yeah. Sarah's here. She's obviously directing everything. Malcolm Green.
Yes, I'm here and I can hear you. Yes.
We don't have Les Knight, and Kerry Morgan sent his apologies. And we have Councillor Carol Gandy, who's the chair of Children and Young People and Scrutiny Committee.
Yes, I'm here and I can hear you.
And we don't have Councillor Diane Thornby. No. Okay. So thank you. I now formally open the meeting. The agenda papers and other relevant information for this meeting are available for public viewing on the Herefordshire Council website. The Council is streaming this meeting live on the Herefordshire Council YouTube channel. A recording will be available via the Council's website shortly after the meeting has been concluded. To ensure that the recording quality is maintained, please speak as clearly as possible and keep background noise to a minimum. Please ensure that mobile phones are switched off and other devices are turned to silent. Please remember that others are permitted to film, photograph and record our public meetings, provided that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. Microphones should be muted. When invited to speak, unmute your microphone, and once you're finished, mute it again. Please use the raise hand icon to indicate that you wish to speak. I think everybody knows what that is, hopefully. I will then invite you to speak in turn. Please remember to lower your hand again after you have spoken. If any attendee loses connection, the meeting will be paused to ascertain if the connection can be restored quickly. If it is not possible to recover the connection within a reasonable amount of time, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum of forum members remains able to hear the proceedings and be heard. If you plan to leave before the end of the meeting, please can you indicate this in advance? I think it will probably be a relatively short meeting, so hopefully everybody will be with us for the duration of the meeting. Where forum members are required to vote on an item, I will ask each member in turn to indicate verbally if they are for, against or abstaining. If a forum member has not been present for the whole discussion on the item due to technical failure, then they should not vote on that item. Are there any questions about this before we continue? Is everybody happy? Right, so we go to the agenda items to receive apologies from absence. Are there any apologies? The clerks are going to read any apologies.
Yes, Chair. I've received apologies from Rose Lloyd, Martin Henton, Tim Knapp, Kimberly Harley, Paul Jennings and Kerry Morgan.
Thank you very much. We'll go the item about to name substitutes. And are there any named substitutes today?
Nikki's in attendance as a secondary substitute today.
Okay, thank you. And item 3, do we have any declarations of interest? No, thank you very much. And then we go on to item 4, which is the minutes of the 15th of March 2019. I wasn't actually at that meeting, so Kathy was the chair. So I will ask each member to confirm their agreement of the minutes. If they were not present at the last meeting, please indicate this. So when we're going through the list, can you say whether you agree with the minutes or whether you weren't there? Okay, so we'll just go through. Kathy?
Yes, I was there, and they are, as I recall, a true record of what took place.
Christy, Brian? No.
Yes, hi, I was there and I agree that they are a true record.
Yeah. Pat Burbridge?
I was there and agree they were a true record.
Alex Davis?
Yeah, I was there and I agree they are a true record.
Paul Deenan?
Yes, I agree. I was there and they're a true record.
Nikki Emmett? I don't think it's there. Nikki?
No, I don't think I was there. No.
No, I just looked on the list, you weren't there. Stephen Fisher? He's not here, is he? Sorry, I don't think so. No. According to my attendance list, and then that was all who was there. Was anybody else? Do I have to go through each person, Sarah?
Chris Lewandowski was there.
Chris was there, I believe. Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
That's the other one.
I was there and I agree with the minutes.
Yeah. Okay. And Carol was in attendance, but obviously, yeah. Okay. Is everybody happy with that? I don't think anybody else from the attendance list was actually at the meeting. We haven't missed anybody out, have we? No.
No.
Thank you very much. So we'll go on to item 5, which is an update on the national schools funding issues. And I will call on Malcolm to update the forum on this.
Right. Thank you, Julie. I have a presentation to share with you. So if you just give me a minute, I'll load it up.
Thank you.
Right. I'll carry on. I'll assume everybody can see and hear. This is an update to Schools Forum of the funding situation as far as I can ascertain the position for next financial year 21-22. It is based on the DFE's 3-year announcement that was last year, because the DFE have not published any further public information on the arrangements for next year. They have been promised for July, but have not been in time for this meeting of Schools Forum. I'd like to start with the outturn of dedicated schools grant for last year. There was an overspend of 1.1 million, which was as we forecast. That is largely due to complex needs, an overspend of 0.8 million, and out of county special schools at 0.4 million, both in the high needs block. There were smaller overspends on top-up tariffs for post-16 and PRU. There were some unrealized savings where I hope to make some savings out of complex needs that didn't materialize. and that was offset by some extra income and savings on support services. The net position was an overspend of 1.1 million, and that reduced our DSG balances from an uncommitted 1.7 million to 0.6 million. So our safety net is becoming smaller each year that goes by. We have done a provisional forecast for this current year for 2021. The budget that we set at Schools Forum earlier this year and approved by the cabinet member was a balanced budget based on last year's actuals. We have provided a range of forecasts. There is a low forecast of a 0.25 million overspend, which is based on all current approved placements on complex needs. And there is a high overspend of just under $1 million, which is based on all placements continuing to the year end. It is likely that some of the high cost places will reduce as COVID restrictions ease. So the assumption is that at the moment we will overspend by 0.6 million due to complex needs, and that will use all of our surplus DSG balances. So we are likely to be in the position at the end of the year with a nil balance and a possible overspend. As far as the information available is 2/3 of local authorities have or are predicting high needs overspends. Some of them are in excess of £20 million. What I know about school funding arrangements for 21-22 is based on the DFE announcement last year. There was a 2.6 billion increase for 2021, which was just over 5%, and relatively smaller increases for 21-22 of 4.6%. The increase for 2021 for Herefordshire worked through as a 5% increase for schools and a 12% increase for high needs and a small inflation increase for early years. On the assumption that that breakdown will continue for 2021-22, that 2.2 billion nationally will be split for us as a 4% increase for schools, just over 4 million. I'm assuming high needs will continue to get a much higher share of the increase, and it could be around 10%, which will give us 1.8 million extra next year. A small increase for early years based on inflation, and a 0 increase in the central block could give us a 6.2 million increase in Herefordshire. That is an assumption on my part, and we will have to wait until December to see what the DFE actually give us. If that comes to pass, then the school's 4.2 million will cover 3% teachers' pay increase, is what the DFE advised the overall teachers' pay increase will cost. 2.75% for support staff, which is 0.5 million, 0.6 million, and less than 2% for all other costs, sort of non-staffing costs and rates and such. The minimum funding level for primary schools is going up from 3,750 to 4,000, and I estimate that will cost us 1.4 million. That will be included in the 4.2 million that we have, and you can see that basically for most schools it's going to be an inflation increase, apart from those primary schools who benefit from the increase in minimum pupil funding levels. For high needs, the 1.8 million that we're potentially going to get, I have provisionally split as follows, in that there will be pay rises associated with top-up tariffs at the rate of pay rises for support staff. That could be 0.3 million. I am assuming that the increase in complex needs will continue both this year and next year, and that could be £1 million. It could be more than £1 million. We will have further work to do in the autumn term to get a fix on that as it goes through the year, and there will be a continuing increase in special school places or out of county placements. If we get the 10% increase in high needs funding, then that 1.8 million, although it seems a big increase, is going to go very quickly on complex needs and out of county placements. Early years, we will only be able to increase the rate we pay to early years providers if there is an increase in the rate given to us by DFE. A 1.5% increase will give us 6p per hour increase to providers, and that would be subject to consultation with early years providers in the autumn term. There are some other considerations that we know will happen. The teachers' pay grant and teachers' pension employer contributions grant will be absorbed into the national funding formula, and so they will be paid through the funding formula at the start of the year, and schools will not get a separate grant. That will apply to local maintained schools from April 21, and it will be for academies from September 21. So academies will continue to get a grant payment in the summer term. The minimum funding level for primary schools, I've already talked about. That will provide a significant boost for our lowest funded primaries. About 20 schools will benefit. I've also picked up that the Year 7 literacy and numeracy catch-up premium will be discontinued and included in the national funding formula. And with the budget working group, we intend to review the use of the growth fund for secondary intakes in Golden Valley as a whole. Last year, we asked Schools Forum to approve growth funding for Kingston High. We will do that for Golden Valley as a whole planning area with the budget working group. The consultation in the autumn 20, there are two other things which I would like to put in that consultation. One will be looking to remove the reception uplift factor, which applies to primary schools and deals with it's forecast the delayed reception intake between October and January census. Primary numbers used to be funded on the January census, and when it was moved forward to the October census in 2014, the DFE introduced a forecast process to give funding for those pupils who started between October and January. The problem we have is it's not funded by DFE, as the grant we get paid is paid on October numbers. There's 27 pupils which are included in the forecast. That's £100,000 we have to find out of the grant which is not funded. In general, it is one pupil for a number of primary schools. We will consult on removing that. And the other thing which I would like very much to do is to change the clawback percentage for locally maintained schools with the balances from 25% down to 20%. 25% is very generous, and the problem with having balances so high is that schools do not spend their budget on current pupils. They simply put it in the bank, and it can lead to further problems later on. So subject to further working with the budget working group and Schools Forum, then those are the items I would like to include in the consultation paper in the autumn. The timetable will be pretty much as we have done in previous years. We expect it sort of by August, the DFE will publish their proposals for the national funding formula. Early September, we will agree a draft consultation paper with the budget working group. Schools Forum in October will then be asked to agree that consultation paper for schools and the broad nature of the schools budget. Early December, after the end of the consultation, we'll prepare some proposals for the budget with the budget working group and the expected money grant allocated from government. In January, we'll finalise all of that with Schools Forum and then ask the cabinet member to sign off and submit to the DFE in late January. And in March, we will then come back to look at the high needs budget before the end of the year for cabinet member approval. I'm happy to take any questions on that anybody has, perhaps through the chair or through Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm, for that. Would anybody like to ask Malcolm any questions? Oh, sorry, yes, Paul.
Just to say huge thanks to Malcolm. I think he's done an excellent job in giving a very thorough summary. And also, I think in terms of the consultation process, that allows schools then to put any comments or thoughts forward. So from, my perspective, I think it's a job very well done. And thanks to him for providing it.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Nikki, you'd like to say something?
Yeah, it's not a question really. It's just for colleagues, because obviously as the special school rep, it does look like we're regularly overspending. It's one of the things that people may not be aware of is that the funding formula for special schools is £10,000 per pupil. And that has not changed for 7 years. So inflation has increased. And if you do the calculations, if the funding of the places had gone up in line with inflation, each child would now be funded at over £11,000. So we have to rely far more heavily on the top-ups, because we just haven't got the same equivalent. It's not been index linked at all since 2013. I just want to make people aware we really do try very hard with our money and our funding. It's just that the baseline hasn't been upped since it started to be introduced.
Thank you, Nikki. I can appreciate that comments made. Anybody else like to make any more comments? I can't see any hands. No, everybody happy with that? Yep. I'm sure Malcolm's very happy to take questions by email or any other form of communication if required.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Later date. Okay.
Sorry, could I just ask the question? Why is it that it hasn't been updated? Because that seems to me to be for special schools. If it's 10,000 for 7 years, why hasn't it been uplifted? Is any reason for that, Malcolm or Chris?
It's set by the DFE, Paul, and I think it's set by the DFE, and it is linked to the £6,000 threshold in mainstream schools. Right. The assumption being that £4,000 is the average paid for pupils for basic education through the formula, and the £6,000 threshold is based on the notional SEN, and that gives an equivalent of £10,000 to special schools. So if they increase the £10,000 to 11,000 in special schools, they would have to change the threshold in primary schools and change the other factors. So I think it's difficult for them to do that. We are awaiting the details of the DFE SEND review, which is being led by Tony McCardle. That was supposed to be published at Easter and has been delayed, and that will have to look at all of the funding and the relationship between special schools and pupils with special needs in mainstream schools and that relationship. Okay. I mean, I would just echo to Nikki, we do actually try to make sure the top-up tariffs paid to special schools are reflective of the inflation costs in special schools. The problem is, of course, is that for a special school budget, half of the money comes from the fixed £10,000 and half comes from the top-up tariffs. So we have to sort of almost pay double inflation on the top-up tariffs to make up for the fixed £10,000. So it's not satisfactory, and it does need the DFE to review it, and we keep telling them that.
Okay, I mean, I just wondered if we needed to put any political sort of via our MPs to say we think this is something special for Herefordshire, and whether that needs to be supported.
It's a national. It's a national issue, and the feedback we put into the SEN review, we raised that point particularly. So hopefully it will be dealt with, but we need to wait and see.
Good, that's great. Thank you.
Chris, have you got anything to add on that one? Or
Just to say I mean, we're waiting the national review. I would have thought that's probably going to be delayed given the pandemic and things that are worked on. So the information that Malcolm's put forward and we'll consult on in the autumn, I think may potentially be an interim measure, in terms of trying to get certainly the high needs block on a more stable footing after a number of years. And yeah, in the meantime, Malcolm set out clearly, hasn't he, the use of the top-ups to try and ameliorate what is a kind of systemic issue with the national formula.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anybody else like to ask anything or comment? No, if everybody's happy, then we'll move on to item 6. This is the item 6. This is Constitution Annual Review of the Schools Forum membership. So we need to receive a report on the constitution of the forum and annual review of the forum and budget working group. So can I call on the clerk to update the forum on this item, please? Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is in essence, the annual report that you're required to receive, which looks at the allocation of seats on the forum. I've taken the January 2020 census figures and checked those to judge what the proportion is between pupils in maintained schools and those in academies. There's no significant change from last year, and there's been no regulatory changes that we need to take account of. So the recommendation on that is that no changes are made to the allocation of seats for the coming year. I've also added into here some information about the new regulations that have been put in place, which allows us to hold these forum meetings virtually. Those new regulations took effect from the 18th of June. We're still required to meet at least 4 times a year, but we are now able to do that over a virtual meeting. It is still required to be a public meeting, which is why we are streaming this meeting live via the Herefordshire Council YouTube channel, and that meets that requirement. In essence, in terms of the constitution of the forum, what I've done is taken the same approach that we've taken with the council constitution, which is to create an annex to it, which in essence just sets out that any references to attendance or being present or the like are now taken as read to include attendance via this kind of virtual video conferencing software, and there's a few other practical points in there, just translating that into a virtual meeting as opposed to physical meeting. The regulations run around until the 1st of April next year, unless otherwise amended before then. So at the moment, the intention would be that we would run all future meetings between now and then via the virtual platform. There's certainly hints in the guidance that came out with those new regulations that if the feedback is positive, then I think the DfE are certainly open to potentially continuing this kind of arrangement in the future. So perhaps once you've done a few meetings, it might be useful to get some feedback from members about what they see as the positives and negatives of using this kind of technology for meetings, which we can then perhaps put back to them if we're feeling that actually this is something we might want to do as a permanent arrangement.
I think Paul would like to comment.
Yeah, I mean, could we add something into the consultation document that goes out in the autumn to say about Schools Forum and the virtual, what we're doing currently? And we've got more members attending today than ever. And I think if we are going out to schools to consult on the budget, why don't we also consult on how we meet? Because then you've got the evidence gathered then rather than doing a separate consultation. Just a thought, really.
I think Chris would like to comment.
Yeah, I'm sure this can be picked up outside, but it's worth us exploring going forward a mixture, I would have thought, where people can both attend in person and also virtually. Colleagues have described the amount of time it's taken them, an hour's journey to get to a schools forum meeting, which then could last an hour, and then an hour's journey back to their school. So for quite a number, it makes sense to be able to reduce travel times for all sorts of reasons, and still have an effective school forum. So maybe in the future, according to the kind of safety conditions and guidelines and things, actually continuing with the ability to do both would be makes schools forum effective and effective for the individual members and non-members as well.
Could I ask Sarah, are you able to do that quite easily?
I'm sure we can look at that, Paul. Yes, I think as we've hinted, the benefits are fairly obvious for members on sort of the comments that we've had back already. Obviously, we are ultimately in the lap of what the DfE put in terms of any new regulations, but as I say, the hints were definitely there that I think they are open to this, and whether that's fully virtual meetings or some kind of hybrid arrangement, I think that's quite likely to be the direction of travel for the future. So yes, I'm sure we can put something out there and get any feedback, perhaps particularly from those who perhaps haven't put themselves forward to be members in the past because of the time commitment, and whether this kind of arrangement might actually encourage them to be willing to participate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very much the case, isn't it? Because we have struggled at times to get some members. So, and I know Nikki commented earlier about the time commitment and whatever. So yes, I think if we can.
And the carbon footprint as well. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So anybody else want to comment about that? Otherwise, I'll take the vote on this then. So I'll read the recommendations and then we can have to go. Oh, sorry, Chris.
Thank you. Originally, when the government introduced the national funding formula, they suggested that schools forum would no longer be necessary. Okay. What's the current thinking on that?
Can I have a comment from?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. The government said they would relook at the role of schools forum when that happened, Chris, and that I think is still their intention. There are still local authorities across the land who haven't yet adopted the national funding formula. It is getting fewer and fewer, but I think once the national funding formula is laid in legislation, they will look at the role of schools forum. So I think it's still work in progress from the DfE, and yes, I guess that review is likely to happen in the next couple of years.
Right, thank you.
Okay. I can't see anybody else, so we'll go along. So the recommendations are as follows: that A, Herefordshire Schools Forum receive the report on the constitution of the forum, and B, the outcome of the annual review of proportionality is noted and no changes are made to allocation of seats on Herefordshire Schools Forum or the budget working group. So I'll go around each member in turn, and can they cast their vote, please, by saying indicating that whether they agree. So Kathy? Can't hear.
I agree. I agree.
Christine Bryan?
I agree.
Pat Burbridge?
I agree.
Alex Davis?
I agree.
Paul Deenan?
I agree.
Nikki Emmett?
I agree.
Stephen Fisher?
Not present.
No, sorry, he's not present. Nikki Gilbert?
I agree.
Ed Gwilym is not here. No. Kimberly Harley? No, she's not here. Joe Hedges? Joe?
I agree.
Martin Hender's apologies. Ali Jackson? Not here. Sue Jenkins?
I agree.
Paul Jennings is not here. Stephen Kendrick?
I agree.
The people came in, so Steve Kendrick?
Yeah, I agree.
Tim Knapp? No. Tracy Neal?
I agree.
Chris Lorodonsky?
I agree.
Sean Lyons?
Agree.
Rose Lloyd's not here. Norma Moon.
I agree.
Rachel Rice, I think, came in.
Yeah, I agree.
And myself, I agree. Okay, so now on to item 7, which is dates of the future meetings and work programme. This is confirming the dates of the meetings of the forum for the 2020-21 academic year. And I call the clerk to update the forum, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this is just to agree the dates for the next 12 months and just to set out the work programme that we're expecting to undertake in that period. So the dates that have been put forward based on the standard pattern would be the 23rd of October, the 15th of January 2021, 19th of March 2021 and the 9th of July 2021. As far as the work programme goes, it's the standard items are on there, and much as Malcolm has set out in his presentation, that the main items would be for October to look at the consultation paper and agree that. January receives the responses to that and the sets the school's budget, and then the March meeting is the high needs budget setting from that. Open to members of the forum if they want to propose any other items to put on the work programme at this stage, but we can review that at future meetings if something comes up as we go along. Thank you, Sarah. Is everyone content with these dates for the meetings for the next academic year of the 23rd of October, 15th of January 21, 19th of March 2021 and the 9th of July 2021? Yep. So could you please raise your hand if you have any objections? Otherwise, I will take them as unanimously agreed. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think that's all we have at the meeting, unless anybody else has anything else to add. Carol, would you like to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm certainly on behalf of my own committee, but on behalf of all the councillors in Herefordshire, really, just to thank you all for what you've been doing over the last 3 to 4 months. I mean, I think everybody probably not so much in the past, but has appreciated how important teaching is and how important teachers are. And you know, I, as someone that's come from a background where my husband was involved with teaching, I've always recognised that. But I think some members of the public and certainly public bodies and governments have not over the more recent years recognised the important job that you do. And I think over the last 3 to 4 months, particularly with parents having to homeschool, etc., they've realised just how difficult a job it is, how challenging it is, and how hard that you've worked to try to, you know, deal with the guidelines that are coming forward and everything else that you've been doing to looked after children and our most vulnerable children. So I just want to thank you all for all that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I'm sure that's greatly appreciated. I think Chris would like to say something. Yeah, and
I too would like to echo that and put forward my thanks to colleagues here and throughout Herefordshire's education sector. The compassion and care and work and commitment that has been shown over the course of this pandemic has been truly humbling, really. And of course, our sympathies go out to anyone who's experienced any loss because of COVID-19. It has and continues to be a hugely challenging environment for everyone to work in. And as Councillor Gandhi mentioned, the term homeschooling has taken on a hugely different meaning to what it did before. And, talk of blended learning and things being done remotely have been aspects of life in this country, which has affected so many people. And the teaching is a profession, and quite rightly so, and a hugely valuable one, both for teachers and non-teacher qualified staff in schools. You know, and I just want to echo my thanks to everyone, and to the school leadership, to governors and heads and principals for everything that's been done. You know, working through the whole period, through holidays, weekends, relentlessly, really, and doing so much to support children and families, and particularly the vulnerable. So I do wish everybody well for a summer and a break, because people will need it. And so it's really important for our school early years and college colleagues to have that break. September will come very quickly, and all that brings with it. But I do wish everybody well and thank them all for all they've done.
Thank you, Chris and Councillor Gandy. I think Paul would like to add something.
And while we're on thanks, can I thank Sarah for setting this up today, because I think it's been incredibly helpful. Can I thank you, Julie, for the chairing and the inclusive way you've approached that. But I did want to take the opportunity of thanking Chris Baird and Kerry Morgan as the two lead members in Herefordshire. And on behalf of the professional associations, we've had most productive discussions with them over this particular period. And I think that it's been Team Herefordshire working together to try and sort out and make sort of helpful sort of support of schools and staff and the parents and carers. And I think there's an opportunity just to put on record our grateful thanks to the team and the Herefordshire Council for the support they've offered and given to schools, parents and carers at this very difficult time.
Thank you, Paul. Well said. I do agree with you. I think Herefordshire does work as a team well together across all organisations, and I think I'd like to reiterate that one as well. So anybody else like to make any comment? So I think as Chris has said, wish everybody, hopefully the summer weather will return, and wish everybody happy holidays. And I think as there's a recuperation for everybody, I think, in this situation, and let's hope the situation is slightly easier in the autumn. Who knows? But so thank you for attending, and I'm reminding you the next meeting is on the 23rd of October 2020. Please, can I have confirmation that the live stream has ended?